All right, so on tonight we're going to be looking in the book of Acts, Acts chapter 9, verse 6. Acts chapter 9, verse 6. And here it is. Acts chapter 9, verse 6 in the NIV version, it reads this way. It says, "Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do." Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. On tonight, I want to talk about the conversion of Saul. I want to talk about the conversion of Saul. And the reason I want to talk about the conversion of Saul because over the past week, maybe week and a half, everything has been about Donald J. Trump. About he got 36 felonies. And this guy's still trying to run for president. Nobody has talked about, can a felon really be a president? A felon can't vote. A felon can't have a firearm. A felon can't get a good job. A felon cannot get certain apartments because that's on apartment rental applications now. So if a felon can't do all of that stuff, how in the world is this guy going to run for president? I have no idea. I didn't study politics. I don't have a degree in political science, but I'm confused on if that happens or even if they allow him to run. Somebody needs to start the conversation so our people who has felonies on their record can start to get better jobs, can get better employment, can actually start to vote for who the president's going to be. So something has got to change, right? Something has got to change. And we learned that something has got to change on the road to Damascus when Saul actually encountered this bright light. When Saul encountered this bright light, after he encountered the bright light, he didn't see anything, right? And he had a conversation with God. And God said, "Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And he knew that it was God himself because he could feel the deity in his voice. And then the Bible continues to talk about and goes down. And he says, "Who are you?" Saul asked. He said, "I am Jesus whom you are persecuting." And then he replied, "Now get up and go into the city and do what I tell you you must do." He did not give Saul an option. It was a must do. Change must happen. Change must happen. Then Acts chapter 9, verse 7 says, "The men were traveling with Saul stood there speechless because they heard the sound, but they didn't see anyone." The men that was with Saul, they heard the sound, but they did not see anyone. So Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So the people that surrounded him led him out of Damascus, led him by hand into Damascus. And for 3 days, he was blind and he did not eat or drink nothing. That's what happened to Saul. Saw the light, got converted, got conversion. His eyes was open, but he still couldn't see because seeing the glory of God was so bright in his life that everything else became numb. Okay. And so we know that the road to Damascus, where Saul's life changing encounter with Jesus Christ occurred, this particular story, it offers valuable insights and lessons for us that we can really use on today, especially today. It offers powerful truths that remains of God's protection. It also talks about the importance of unexpected individuals in our lives. Who knew that somebody that was designed to persecute Christians would be converted over to be the one pretty much to write the entire New Testament, right? So God can use anybody. So the importance of unexpected individuals in our lives and how they transform the nature of living wholeheartedly for the Lord. After Saul was converted, He was wholeheartedly 100%, 10 toes down, living for God. Something must happen, right? Something must happen. And everybody know that I like definitions, right? So by definition, must is required. The definition of must is that it must be required. It's immediate. It's a future need, or it's a purpose. We talking about a must. Okay. A must is connected to your purpose. You got to do it. It's required for you to do. You need to do it immediately because it's connected to your purpose. It's a necessity. Okay. A must is a necessity. You can't change what you was purposed to do. You cannot alter, what you was designed to do. You must do it because you are the only person that literally can do it. And so if God has called you to something specific, it's a must do. God has been talking, but I don't know if a lot of people been listening, right? God has been talking, but I don't know if a lot of people has been listening, or even if they're listening, are they listening clearly? Are they listening clearly? Because if you must do what God tells you to do, everything that you do is designed and ordained to be constructed to what? To your purpose. It's constructed to what? To your purpose. So the very first thing we learn about Saul on his road to Damascus, on the way to Damascus, is that God protects his people. God protects his people. God protects his people. I don't know how many times I got to say it, right? But God will protect his people. So the road to Damascus, it was not a random road. It was not a random road. Saul's intent was on persecuting believers. Saul was what? He was authorized by the leaders of Damascus to arrest anyone who followed the Lord. Okay. He was authorized to do that. Saul was authorized to lock him up, beat him up, and do whatever he designed to do with them. But before he could reach the city, he was what? He was confronted by the Lord God himself. So this encounter serves as a reminder that God is actively involved in the protection of his people. It means that God watches over us. He watches all over us. He watches over them, and he intervenes in unexpected ways to safeguard his people from harm. This little story also reveals to us what? That even when we mistreat or persecute God's people, we are directly opposing him. We are directly opposing God. So this lesson reminds us to treat others with kindness. It reminds us to treat others with compassion. It reminds us to treat others with respect. It also recognizes that in doing so, we are honoring God himself. So God intent to have Saul on this road going to Damascus that was going to persecute the believers. His intent was to change Saul. Could you imagine that the negativity on your life, God is going to turn it around for positivity, and he's going to protect his people with it? Because it's a must, right? It's a must. It was connected to Saul's purpose to change to Paul. So whatever we go against, with anything that drives us in the wrong direction, we have to realize that God will protect his people by any cost. That God will protect his people by any cost. And so what he did was he used the most unlikely person to save the body of Christ and change their name. He used the most unlikely person to change the body of Christ. So we may encounter people that has been a felon before. We may encounter people that has been to jail. We may encounter people that has done wrong, right? But God can use that person for the intent of building up other believers. God can do that. Why? Because he protects his people, right? So number one, God will protect his people. God protected his people from Saul by intervening, by allowing Saul to see his glory, by giving Saul more direction, right? And then the next thing that happens that is we understand that unexpected blessings are on our path. That was an unexpected blessing for Saul. Before Saul got converted over to Paul, right? It was an unexpected blessing along Saul's path. Who would have thought? Who would have thought Saul, the one that was going to Damascus to persecute and to kill believers, would get an unexpected blessing from God? Who would have thought the guy who was designed to persecute Christians would be the one that God would actually bless on his way there? That's too spiritual. That's too biblical. Who would have thought that God would have used you as you're on your path to save somebody else? Unexpected blessings is on our path, right? And so even though Saul was designed to do wrong, he got an unexpected blessing that converted him to do what was right. If you ever think about your life, how many times were you intending to do something wrong and something nudged you on the shoulder and say, hey, get out the car? Something nudged you on the shoulder and say, hey, go home. Something nudged you on the shoulder and say, this ain't the right crowd. Or for some of us, you woke up in the driveway and said, how in the world did I get home? I don't even remember how I got here. It was an unexpected blessing that was along your path. So in Saul's journey, we get to witness the unexpected grace of Ananias, because Ananias was willing to do what? Accept Saul despite his horrible past. This demonstrates to us the power of extending forgiveness as it is directed by the Lord. Sometimes God places unexpected individuals along our path to do what? Bless us and influence our life. It can happen at work. It can happen at church. Somebody unexpectedly that's on your path that God places in the direction that you're walking can bless you or have the potential to bless and influence your life, right? And so as the old school saints would say, don't disregard those who have less than you, because you could be entertaining an angel, right? You could be entertaining an angel. You never know who people are. So we must be open and we must be receptive, allowing God, allowing the Lord to work through these connections to bring about transformative experiences and growth. Because had Saul not been on the road to Damascus, right, he would have not encountered Ananias. Had he not encountered Ananias, he would not have been blessed. And if he had not been blessed to learn what forgiveness looks like, he probably would have never changed over to learn how to forgive others after he was sent there to do something totally different. It's unexpected blessings along our path. We're not always going to be in a valley. We're not always going to be in dark places. We're not always going to be going through something, right? And so we have to appreciate as Joe Nay just put in the chat yesterday. I'm sorry, I had to think about it. You have to count your small victories, right? Don't despise your small victories, right? And so I get it. Everybody went the big kabang, the big boom, right? The real big victory. What about the small victory that you had 10 to put on 6 and you was able to make it to work on time, right? What about those small victories when you pay a bill off that has been haunting you for X amount of years? What about the small victories? So those small victories are also what? unexpected blessings that will happen on our path. Then last but not least, we learn that we have to live for God without delay. We have to live for God without delay, which means that there can be no procrastination when it comes to serving God. Because the definition of must, if we remember, it has to happen immediate. It's a necessity. It's a requirement, right? And so living for the Lord without delay, Saul's conversion on the road to Damascus was a pivotal moment. It didn't take 3 days. It didn't take 5 days. It didn't take 2 weeks, right? It happened at a pivotal moment that transformed him into the Apostle Paul. And he never looked back wholeheartedly. And he embraced a life that was dedicated to preaching about Christ. So why is it so? If that can happen to Saul, why do the body of believers always think it's a long process to change their life? Why do they think I got to go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 before change can happen? If in fact what happened to Saul is 100% accurate, he immediately changed to Paul. Immediately changed to Paul, and he never looked back. Does that mean that his past disappeared? No, it does not. It means that he changed his perspective. He changed his outlook. He changed how he wanted to live his life day after day after day. He did not go back and revisit what was behind him, right? And so he didn't compare what he was doing compared to what he had already done. And so when we learn to live for the Lord without delay, the moment we give our life to Christ is the moment change can start being applied. The moment we give our life to Christ is the moment that change can start being applied, right? And so this serves as a powerful reminder that no matter what you have done in the past, we can have a genuine desire to experience Christ's love and make a change. We can make a change. We can have our own transformative that may require effort and sacrifice. But in the business world, they call it ROI, return on investment, right? So Christ's love makes us make that change. The road to transformation, it requires our effort and our sacrifice. But you got to remember, your return on investment outweighs what you have to sacrifice. I'm pretty sure that as Saul was converted over to Paul and he never looked back, that his good days outweighed his bad days and he didn't complain, right? Because he had already done some bad stuff. And so it encouraged us to live for the Lord without delay and to do what? Be fully committed to the teachings and the sharing of the gospel with others. And so now that that's how we live, that's how we see it, a change must occur. We cannot procrastinate. We cannot hesitate. We have to make the decision that a change must occur. Why must a change occur? The change must occur because it is connected to our purpose. Because it is connected to our purpose. So the road to Damascus presents us with all these great lessons, right? This is just a brief overview. It presents us with all these profound lessons, all these great lessons that still hold relevant to this day. They still hold relevant to this day. How do we know they hold relevant to this day? One, because God protects his people. God is very protective over his people, right? So anytime you're up against a crunch, you always say that God got your back. He will not put more than me than I can bear, right? Because God protects his people. Not only does God protect his people, he gives us what? Unexpected blessings along our path. God will give us unexpected blessings along our path. And these blessings are extended from what? From his grace. because grace and mercy shall follow us all the days of our life. So as we walk this walk, as we walk this path, we must know that unexpected blessings will come our way. But remember, we have to be receptive to the blessings as they come. We have to be receptive to the blessings as they come. And last but not least, we have to realize and recognize that the transformative power of living wholeheartedly for God is a must. And it has to happen without delay. It has to happen without delay. Okay. And so as we reflect on these lessons, how can I apply this to my life daily? Right? How can I apply these lessons that Saul encapsulated in the book of Acts? How can I apply these lessons to my life on a daily basis? How can I embrace God's protection? How can I extend grace to others? How can I embark on a journey of what being wholehearted and being and being careful to other people? Okay. So how am I going to display God's love each and every day of my life? Something has got to happen. A change must occur, right? And so we know how drastic the change was for Saul. Saul went from being a persecutor who was approved to persecute Christians and believers going to Damascus. That's why he was going to Damascus. He wasn't going to have a good time. He was not going to have a good time, right? He was not going down to the Piggly Wiggly. He was going to do bad harm to people. But because of the great and merciful God that we serve, God protect us. Okay? Because God protected us and his people back then, what happened? He also protected Saul. He protected Saul by giving him an unexpected blessing that changed his life for the rest of his life. So if nothing else, continue to walk the journey, continue to walk the path. Be prepared. Be prepared for unexpected blessings. And lastly, always look out. Always look out on how we can live for the Lord without delay. When God tells us to move, we have to move. Okay. And because oftentimes God tells us to move, he won't give us the next location until we move from that first location. Okay. Even in the sense of Saul, it happened to Abraham. He told Abraham, grab his son and go out to the mountains to a place where I tell you. He didn't tell him where the mountain was until he was always on a journey. Just like Saul. Saul was already going to Damascus. Saul already had a location in mind. But because of God's interruption and the protection of his people, his mission changed. And that's why he couldn't see for 3 days. His whole concept got screwed up. Changed, right? I am no longer here to harm. I am now here to help and to heal, because he's now the Apostle Paul. So that's our lesson for the night. We looked at Acts chapter 9, verse 6, where it says, now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. Get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. And we really